Hello, good morning. We would like to welcome you to our Developing Mental Strength to Win in Challenging Environments webinar. It is really important to us to kind of focus on how we can support you during these times. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker for today. We have Ben with us. When I first met Ben 3.5 years ago, he was training to run his third marathon. Now, most people decide to do that once, but for him, it wasn't quite enough. Ben moved to the UAE and he became an Ironman, which basically means that you do a competition of running, cycling and swimming. Initially, Ben wasn't the strongest swimmer, but that didn't stop him. He ensured to get special training and to become really, really good at it. If that wasn't enough, Ben decided to run 250 kilometers over the course of 5 days in Wadi in Jordan last summer. So in terms of having the mental strength to be able to achieve amazing things, we're really excited to have him here today with us to share his experiences and how he has overcome and been determined to achieve amazing things. Even at this very uncertain time, Ben has recently started up his own company. So if anyone's got the determination to overcome challenges and to be mentally strong, he's the right person. So we're extremely grateful to have him here today and very excited to learn from his experiences. My name is Milena. I currently work at BZAT, who are hosting this webinar. The reason why I was personally excited to host the session is that I originally come from Montenegro, and at the age of 11, my parents sent me to boarding school in England because there was a civil war in my country. So as a child, I was very used to living in uncertain times. Every time I left my parents, I kind of thought, will this be the last time that I see you? So kind of from personal experiences as a child, I know these are very difficult times for everybody, but I kind of want to give my insight as to how, I'm coping in these times with so much uncertainty and change that is going on. The agenda for today, and it's going to be quite interactive. Ben has come up with some really cool things for us in terms of goal setting. We really want to add value to you and help you long term during this time. So very excited to see what he's going to be sharing with us. We really need to focus on community today more than ever. Having the right family members around, connecting with people via Zoom, it's really, really important. And then we also really want to hear from you. So please feel free to add any questions in the chat group. And at the end of the session, we will focus most of our time to answer any of the questions you have today. I think while we go through the COVID-19 crisis, everybody is dealing with it in a very different way. So there's a company called Gallup in the US that basically tracks people's approach to natural disasters and any kind of life-changing moments. So they did a lot of studies in 2008 around how people dealt with the financial crisis as well as after 9/11. So there's essentially two types of people that when anything like this happened, there's people that, become victims, they feel very sorry for themselves and come up with a lot of excuses. Alternatively, there's the type of person that actually believes that has the right mindset and makes the most out of the situation. So as you all know, Kobe Bryant died a few months ago. It was absolutely tragic, but he was very much known for his Mamba mindset and being super positive and energetic and always believing and working harder. And I found this quote which I thought would be really fitting for our session today, because mindset isn't about seeking a result, it's more about the process. And I think all of our lives kind of been thrown up in the air, and it's important to focus on your mental health now more than ever before, and not how we're going to get through the next few weeks, but ultimately months and years to come. So it's very important to talk to people and kind of understand the good things that are happening to you. But without me talking much further, I'm now going to hand over to the lovely Ben, and he's going to take us through the session.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Milena. As Milena said, I want to try and keep the session as interactive as possible. I realise no one else can talk back to me, so we're going to try and use the chat box or the Q&A box. So I want to start with a question for everyone. So coming into 2020, who had New Year's resolutions in place? So who had some goals coming into this year? Again, just reply in the chat box. Awesome. So a lot of people coming through there. Yep, definitely me. No one's answered no. And then who set some firm goals for 2020? So into different areas of their life, who set some very firm goals, maybe on Jan 1st of this year? Again, just into the chat box. Yep, so someone set an annual goals, both goals and resolutions. Yep, me. Awesome. So everyone came into this year with probably big goals and high expectations. And there's no doubt that the world has changed in the last 3 months. So a bit of a reality check from them goals that you would have set on the 1st of January. Who is keeping those goals? Awesome. So good stuff. So what I want to do now is just to have a little bit of a reflection into 4 areas. So the 4 areas we're going to break down into, we're going to look at personal, professional, business, finance, and development and learning. So what I want you to do is just reflect on the current situation. So write maybe a sentence or 2 for each of these. So in your personal life, what's the current situation for now? What's in your professional business life? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? What are your feelings? Same for your finances. And then development and learning is like, what are you doing to learn new things or get better at the things you've done? So I'll give you maybe 2 or 3 minutes. Just come up with 1 or 2 sentences for each of these areas in your life. Milena, so if I was to ask you, whilst everyone's writing things down there, talk to me through, I guess, your development and learning. What's your current situation there?
So I guess like a lot of people, when we initially went into, working from home, I kind of was a little bit naive thinking it was just going to take a couple of weeks. And for the first 2 weeks I was at home, I really didn't do much. But over the last kind of few weeks, I've tried to really focus on learning new skills. So I've taken up baking, which I've become quite good at. I'm making chocolate fondants. So I'm really trying to, become good in the kitchen. In terms of like my personal goals, I was really good before we went into basically lockdown at exercising and going to work out. So this kind of got put on hold for a couple of weeks, but as I realized that our reality is that we will not have the access to go out, I basically then started to work out at home. So it was more about kind of understanding what the current situation that we're living in and how I need to adapt my life in order to live some sort of normality.
Yeah, very good.
And you, Ben, what are your current situation? What is your current situation?
I guess my biggest challenge here has to be around professional business. So me and my business partner decided at the back end of December or start of January that we'd go self-employed on the 1st of April. Little did we know that the world would change so much. So the current situation, if I was to use descriptive words, there is probably a bit of panic, there's a bit of uncertainty, and I'd imagine these are feelings that everyone's got, even if they're still working the same role, because everything's changed, for sure. Is there anyone that would like to share these? I know people are replying to us directly into the chat, but is anyone comfortable with us to share some of the current situations? Just give me a thumbs up in the chat box.
Yes, okay, cool. So you don't have to read out the names, but you can maybe read out some of the comments that we have.
Awesome. So someone around professional business, current situation, there's job insecurity, but they're still hopeful in trying to learn new skills on LinkedIn Learning. LinkedIn Learning is a great tool for anyone that hasn't used it. They're exercising and cooking. So that's the current situation for them. Developing and learning, they're learning new skills, more into HR, personal. They've got more time with kids whilst working from home, etc. There's someone spending time getting up to date on knowledge on HR practices, maybe considering the impact of COVID, etc. So loads of good stuff coming through here.
I guess
Great
what's
stuff.
coming out, where people have more time, what we're seeing here is that people are spending the time to kind of develop themselves and learn, which is really amazing. I mean, I was doing some studying and it said that education and our access to information, like now we're really making the most out of it. So there's no commuting to the office, you're not going out. So I think I'm really pleased to see that there's a lot of people that have joined us today that are focusing on self-development and getting better.
Great stuff. So what we're going to do now is reflect through to ideal situations. So what we're going to do is have a look at where we want to be in 60 days time. So what I need you to do is really imagine we're sitting in probably the middle of June, June 15th, 60 days from now. What would an ideal situation look like here for your personal, your professional, your finance and your development area? So you've just wrote what you're currently doing. So what I want you to use, and it's probably a lot of descriptive language here, exactly where you want to be in 60 days time. Now, the key thing to do here is really set goals or where you want to be with things that you can control. So what you don't want to do here is set goals around COVID being resolved and me being back in the office, because the reality is there's no one person in this world that's going to make that happen. So it's something out of our control, and we always want to control the controllables. So what I want you to do, again, spend maybe a couple of minutes here writing a sentence in each of these boxes. So personal, professional, business, finance and development and learning, exactly where you would like to be in 60 days from now. So Milena, dive into your development and learning for me. What would you like to be in 60 days from now?
Well, I'd like to be out with my friends, seeing people ideally. But, if we're not, I'm really using this time to focus on things that I'm very passionate about. So I'm very good at killing plants, but I've taken up joining a plant club to basically learn more about that, because I think, they're really good for you. Like, I love beauty products and makeup, so I'm going to be doing some tutorials. In terms of learning for work, I think it's really important to attend as many courses as possible. So things that, I look after our strategic accounts, so how I can get better at that and what value I can add to our customers. One of the things for me over the last few weeks has really been like pushing me to do things outside of my comfort zone. So, even launching the webinar series and learning how to use Zoom and how to send out invites. It's really, really good. And then on a personal level, I just want to ensure that I stay as physically fit as I possibly can. Because I found that for the first few weeks, I was definitely eating too much, not moving enough. So yeah, very kind of excited. And so I think it's important to look at your life and plan, because one of the things I've noticed with a couple of friends of mine is that essentially they've put life on hold. And the truth is you can't, like, you still have to come up with a different plan of how you will be living. And for you, Ben, what are your 60-day goals, the things that you would like to work on?
I love that insight, Milena. So I feel like this is a challenge for a lot of people at the moment. They're sort of sitting and waiting for COVID to go over. But the reality is, in my opinion, and it is just an opinion, that life will never go back to like it was 2 months ago. So if you put your life on hold waiting for it to become like it was 2 months ago, I think we'll be waiting a very long time. In terms of 60 days from now, if again, I spoke about professional business, as a business at the moment, we're using a bit of a lean model. So what we had planned 4 or 5 months ago, the reality is now there's probably not too much money to make in that area. So we're just trying out different things. So I'd like to think in 60 days from now, we probably have a new normal of what the world's going to look like, and in terms of our business plan and the type of things we're looking to do, be a lot more settled. And that actually plays into loads of areas of my life. So it leads into finances and personal. In terms of development and learning, I think I've realized very quickly what some of my strengths are, but also areas that I really need to work on. So this morning, for example, I was working on some emails and landing pages, and it's something I've never done before. So in 60 days from now, I'd probably like to have some form of marketing course, maybe using Udemy behind me or in place.
And then from your own personal experience, you know, as we touched on it earlier, you ran 250 kilometers in a space of 5 days across the desert. So the mental strength that you will need to kind of keep on going, you know, the body achieves what the mind sets. How are you using that kind of skill set that you naturally have, and how would you advise people to have the resilience in this time?
It's a great question. I think the things that you learn going through really, really tough situations for a lot of people, this definitely will be one of the toughest situations we've been through. The reality is we're all going to come out of this. So it's the same as when you're in Jordan, and I will touch on an experience. So there's one day in Jordan that's 72 kilometers long, and I was about 40 kilometers in. I hadn't been able to eat all day. I was struggling. It was super hot, and I was alone. And then you get offered a choice, and I guess it's similar to a choice that a lot of people on this seminar will have now. It's either stop, freeze, and don't do anything, or just make the choice to put a step forward and continue. So I feel like a lot of people at the moment just need to make that choice to start with a left foot and then the right foot, and then just start walking and moving forward.
Cool. Ready for the next
stuff.
slide?
Yeah, good stuff. So again, loads of messages have popped into the group, and maybe we should share some of these. So in terms of finances, some people want to be able to still be able to save even after a salary cut, which I think is a reality for a lot of people in this market, being without work or salary reduction. On a personal level, people are looking to lose weight as they've gained in the past month. Professional, attend more webinars and enhance my skills. Some business stuff to come up with an idea of my own business. And I love that you've probably now got a space to really work at something on your own, and it's a really nice goal to set in 60 days time. Now, you've all written down goals, but there's questions that we need to ask ourselves on how to achieve that. So these are the 3 questions I really want you to answer, and again, write this down. So today, what do you need to stop doing? So there's something that just isn't serving you towards your purpose or serving you towards your goals. So what do you need to stop doing today? Again, take a minute or 2 to think about this. And with this question, it's not normally the first thing that comes into your head. So as an ex-smoker, and I know a lot of smokers, as soon as someone says, what should you stop doing? They answer smoking. The reality is, if you're not ready to stop, you're unlikely to stop. So spend a bit of time on this and really think about what you need to stop doing to serve what you're looking to achieve in the next 60 days. And the other 2 questions, what do you do more of? So what are you currently doing today that's giving you a return, but you need to go all in on? So where do you need to spend more of your time? And then the final question is, what do you need to start doing? So something you're not currently doing. If you had the option to start today, what would that be? So what do you need to start doing? Again, feel free to share answers into the group or the group chat, and if you're comfortable, I'll share them with the group.
I mean, we were discussing this earlier, and I think, you know, I believe that you said that on average, people spend 7 hours a day kind of absorbing information. I think it's really important that right now you kind of focus on where you're getting information. It's crucial that you keep up to date with what is happening, but at the same time, you can't let it consume you. So I know in the beginning, I was like obsessed with just, you know, keeping up with what was happening, but actually didn't help me mentally if my whole life was COVID-19. So I think that's something that people should just be aware of. And then things like what you should start doing more of, you know, catching up with people, touching base. Just if you know your friends live alone, like check in with them once a day, just make sure that they're okay, that they don't feel isolated. Everybody has very different situations that they're living in. You know, some people are living with their parents, some people are, you know, with their partner 24 hours a day. So just be mindful of how you can help others around you.
Love that, Milena. And some of the stuff, again, just to share with everyone. So someone's looking for more consistency. So stop having 2 good days and then 1 bad day and then 2 good days. And I think this is actually a reality for a lot of people. A lot of people we speak to, they're having a bad day today. So someone's looking for a bit more consistency, and that's what they need to start doing. So I love that.
Cool.
Good stuff. And some of the questions that have come in, I've ignored them on purpose, is what's the first step that we can take to get into these 60-day goals? So I'm not going to answer that question. I'm going to ask that question to you guys. So again, looking at those 4 key areas, what's the one thing you can do this week to start building towards where you want to be in 60 days? So one measurable action that you can take in the next 7 days in each of those 4 areas that can help you move forward.
What is it for you, Ben? What is the one area that can help you move forward?
So for me, it's definitely probably to start looking at marketing, start really understanding how to drive traffic, engagement, and sort of building a community with what we're trying to do. So in the next 7 days, I will need to sign up to some form of marketing course, because it's definitely not something I can blag very well. So I will have a look at Academy, etc.
Good. And then the other question I had for you, you know, I know that you love working out outside, that you do 120-kilometer cycles, you know, before most people get out of bed. Being at home now, how has your life changed, and what steps are you taking to still stay physically fit? Because no doubt, as soon as life goes back to semi-normal, you're going to want to race and achieve amazing things. So what are you doing to kind of keep physically fit?
Yeah, and it's a good question. I think it's important that I'm authentic with my answer. I'm not going to pretend that I've been running laps around my apartment to keep fit. Again, I look at the community that I've built up in terms of fitness and endurance sports. Now, I've seen one guy run 250 kilometers on a treadmill across 5 days, who replicated the race that we did in October. I've seen someone run 100 kilometers in their garden, which was insane, like 800 laps around their garden. Now, the reality for me is actually I haven't done a lot of that stuff. Exercise was always about getting outside in the fresh air, etc. So something I really need to start doing is trying to figure out a routine that works for me. So yeah.
Cool. Okay, we have a lot of questions, so let's skim through so we could answer them.
So with just before we move on with a 7-day plan, your first action, so something that Bezats and ourselves are going to do is, in 7 days from now, we're going to send out a re-invite to everyone that's on this call. So the 7-day plan that you've set, we're going to not hold you accountable for, because it's not up to us to do this stuff. It's up to you to action it. So in 7 days from now, so we're Wednesday next week, we're probably same session, same people, and we just share who's achieved what they're going to achieve. So after this, you might want to send Melania or I an email with your goals for the next 7 days, and then in 7 days time we'll do the same again. And what you start doing is just building a path towards your 60 days.
Cool.
Good stuff. Now, in terms of community, again, it's just a couple of questions for you guys. So I touched on it then. Community is such an important part in every aspect of our life. Now, there's a saying that you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. Obviously, today we're not spending time with anyone physically, but we are virtually. So who you spend your time with is going to play a really important part in terms of your mental strength and what you're looking to achieve. So my question to everyone is, who do you need to spend more time with in your communities, or what community do you need to lean on online to really help you achieve your goals? And I know you had some insight on this, Melania.
Yeah, I mean, before the lockdown, I used to work out at Crank Studio in Alcouz. So The community there has been phenomenal. So they're doing loads of virtual classes, but it's just been really nice to stay in touch with people, that they push us, they motivate us. And then what we've done at work is that we've reached out to all of our team members to understand their passion. So we've actually got loads of different clubs. So things like Foreign Films Club, Music Club, Tiger King Club, we've got a beauty club, fitness club. So there's a lot of things that you can do virtually to like engage with people, and they have the same passions as you. And actually, like, it's been really nice to reconnect with some of our team members that I didn't necessarily speak to before, that I'm now involved in, and we have things in common. So there's lots of things that you can do online, but of course, you know, if you want us to support you, then we'd be more than happy to welcome you into our clubs and our community. So thank you, Ben. That was really insightful. We've got loads of questions. So I just want to wrap up the presentation, open it for Q&A. I think the truth is we all need to adapt that this is our new reality. You know, the life that we knew 6 weeks ago is not the life that we have today. And we very much have to accept that things have changed, but we need to find a way to make the most and positive changes that we possibly can. As Ben said, you know, the 5 people you spend the most time with will have the biggest impact on your life. So think about, you know, reconnecting with your loved ones, having Zoom calls, doing virtual game nights, just to kind of keep busy and occupied. And then thirdly, which one of the things I've really loved on the chat today is that development and self-learning is such a big part of everyone's lives now. And it's really amazing to see, because this is a time where you can develop your skill sets. And I completely understand that people are worried about their jobs, pay cuts, etc. However, because we've got that little bit more time, it's an amazing opportunity to develop your skill set, so that you can learn new things and add more value going forward. So without further ado, I'm going to open it up for Q&A. We've got lots of questions, so let me just see. Okay, first question. I'd like to add more HR certifications on my LinkedIn profile, connect with more people in my network, learn how to be more patient. What would you say? How can people do this, Benjamin?
So LinkedIn's actually probably a really good tool, and you've worked for LinkedIn, Milena, so maybe you can talk about LinkedIn Learning as an option, and how to network with that.
So, I mean, I'm an ex-LinkedIn employee, so I would always say to you, like, it's about the quality of your network, not the quantity. So I actually do a clean out every 3 months of my LinkedIn connections, because if I don't feel that I can reach out to someone to work with me, there's no point having them there. I think having the LinkedIn Learning is amazing, because you can actually really develop so many different skill sets. In terms of how to learn to be more patient, I actually can't help you with this because I'm not a very patient person. So probably Ben can give you more insight.
Patience is an interesting one, and I think it's a learned behavior. So I like to touch on something called delayed gratification. So a lot of the world at the moment is all about instant gratification, getting likes on social media, getting positive feedback, etc. But setting yourself some longer term goals. So this is probably a really nice start for you. So if you set a goal from 60 days away, the reality is you're not going to get that hit of the good feeling for 60 days. So you're going to have to work at something every single day to achieve what you're looking to achieve. So in terms of patience, setting yourself some longer goals, which might mean giving up some of the stuff that you get rewards for on a daily basis. So you might lose that half an hour in bed, but you know in 60 days from now, you're going to achieve what you're going to achieve. So yeah,
Cool.
For me, it's a taught behavior.
We've got a great question here. What would be an example of baby steps you could do every day while working from home to start building resilience?
Another great question. I will link this back to, I guess, sport and endurance sport, because it's really comfortable for me. So Jordan's a great example. So Jordan was 250 kilometers. Before signing up to that race, I'd never ran back-to-back days. I've never ran anything further than a marathon, which was 42 kilometers. And you was doing that every day for 5 days. So the goal itself was scary. So to achieve that's a really scary goal. And the reality is when I signed up to that, I wasn't the person that can complete it. So then you have to break down that longer goal into smaller goals. So it's what we're trying to do here. So your 60-day goal is 60 days away, but what's the first step that you can do in the next 7 days? I can never answer that question for you. But if you got out a pen and a paper and drew out the 6 weeks, 7 weeks it's going to be for your 60 days, and then just set a little goal each week and just break it down like that.
Cool. We've got a question here. Would you have any advice on tools to put in place within an organization to keep staff members motivated, although they're now focusing mainly on the tough reality of the situation, keeping job, hoping no salary cuts, etc. So what tools would you advise for people to use to keep their teams motivated?
Milena, as working for the organization.
Okay, so look, I think one of the things that we've done really well in our organization is that we realize that communication is everything. So there is no guarantee that we will not take pay cuts, that we will not let people go, that they will not have to take unpaid leave. The truth is, I think if you're communicating proactively, then people feel more reassured. So we've actually set up like daily huddles with all of our team members. We have check-ins to make sure that, you know, the team members are okay if they need any help. If they live in areas where, you know, they're on lockdown and they're not able to get out, that somebody's reaching out to them, etc. Slack is a great tool to use for, you know, for communicating with your team. In this time of uncertainty, we really need to like understand and appreciate that working from home is the new norm. So there's lots of like fun things that you can do. Remember to laugh, it's really, really important. So do like games nights. It just really helps people keep motivated.
Love that.
I would like to set a 60-day goal related to professional aspects. My usual working routine gave me a huge backlog, but with work from home, because of the new norm for my company, it gives me a lot more time to focus and finish each task and project in a timely manner. This is excellent. I should stop being worried about what will happen and focus what I can do with this time.
Yeah, I love that insight. So for me, this is all about, again, controlling the controllables. If you're sitting there worrying about what's going to happen and you can't control it, it's going to become very consuming. So the fact that you're looking to not ignore it, because it's not going to go away. You can't ignore it. It'd be the wrong thing to say. But the fact you're going to concentrate on the things that you can control is amazing. That's awesome.
First, I will assess the current situation, like within market or my colleagues or within organization, how companies approaching current situation. Okay. What tools and skills are you using to manage the situation now as a new business owner?
That's a good question. So I've not seen my business partner since we started the business. I've actually not seen my business partner for 4 or 5 weeks. So we're using Zoom a lot. Just have a huddle in the morning, then we like huddle again sort of midday. We're using Trello for project management. So we're putting what we're going to do on a daily basis or a weekly basis into there. So Trello, Slack. Slack's free, I think, for small businesses under 10 employees. So we're using Slack as our communication tool. Yeah, I think those are the 3 main things. Something we're also leaning on a lot as a small business, and I think we will probably continue to do this outside of COVID life, is leaning on Fiverr.com. So Fiverr is a really good outsourced tool, so you can find people that are expert in certain areas. So where we're not strong, we try and outsource it to experts, and we're actually finding the quality of people on Fiverr to be really good. Now, I would make an assumption that there's a lot of people that have recently lost their job, unfortunately, but they're going to be proactive and try and use some of their talents on fiverr.com. So you've got some really talented people without work at the moment looking to take on small projects for businesses. So we've been leaning on Fiverr a lot as well. I hope that answers.
Very good. And then, you know, a lot of people are very overwhelmed with the current situation, especially people who have maybe kids at home, so they're doing homeschooling, plus they have their normal job. You know, what advice would you give them to have the strength to stay positive and stay focused, to be able to deal with the new normality?
Yeah, it's another great question. So for me, I always reflect on difficult times in the past and what's happened afterwards. So for every difficult moment I've had during races, and I'll talk about races, it never lasts. So the feeling that I had in races, it never lasts. As long as you keep moving forward, it goes away and gets better. And it's actually those darker moments where you really, really learn stuff. So whilst at this moment it's challenging, and I can't even begin to think what it's like trying to homeschool people whilst running a business, whilst working for people, my reflection would be that out the back of this you would have learned so much about yourself and about the people around you, that the resilience of the community is just going to be amazing. Like what we're going through at the moment is teaching everyone so much about resilience. And as a global economy, when we come out of the back of this, I just think people are going to be in such great space in terms of the mental strength. It really excites me in a strange way.
And then kind of from people talking about the challenges that they're having, I think it's really important that people do reach out. Can you advise of any communities or any online counselling courses that people can speak to?
Yeah, so I know of a couple of websites. I think it's Safe Space, DXB. I think they're a new business, but they're doing some really good online just reach out sessions. And aside from like professional communities, I just think it's important that you reach out to your colleagues, your friends, your family. Something I guess moving it back to business, I've realized as a small business owner, and I think something that's amazing that's come out of this is kindness seems to be winning. So every time we reach out to a business, people are always willing to help. And I just don't know if that was the same 2 or 3 months ago. So I think it's just keep reaching out to everyone.
And what advice would you give people to kind of structure their day? I mean, you know, over the last few weeks, I've had cases where I've spoken to some of my friends who haven't even showered for 2 days. And I find this like really worrying. Kind of, how would you, not just because it's gross, but, you know, I worry about the fact that if you don't have motivation to get up and make your bed and have a wash, how are you actually being productive working from home? So what tips and tricks would you give people to...
Yeah, cool. So for me, this goes back to your rituals. I think there's a saying that says, show me what you do today and I'll show you where you will be in a year. And that's really talking about the things that you do every single day. So pre-COVID, if we're going to talk about it like that, my day would consist of getting up very early, going for a run, showering, breakfast, clean teeth, getting to work before everyone else. Now that was normal for me. Now, obviously, that's not possible. So for me, what I can't do is do nothing. So if I roll out of bed and then jump on a call, I've lost all that great time that I used to get in the morning. So it's just about resetting your normal. So what you were doing 2 months ago isn't what you need to do today. So it's probably taking that time to really understand how you need to structure your day. Don't try and stumble through the day. I'll get out of bed. Like, this is now the new normal. So what can you now set up as your structure to win?
And I've got a great question here. Is it weird or worrying that in such time you don't really feel like communicating with people, although you might be close to them? Or would it be a phase that would pass with time?
It's a great question. I don't think it's weird at all. I think there's a lot of people that really don't feel like communicating. So I know for me, for the first couple of weeks in isolation, I was spending so much time on Zoom calls. It was more exhausting than when we was in the office and interacting. At the end of the day, I'd shut my computer, and the last thing I wanted to do was start reaching out and sort of soon calling my friends and my family. So I can completely emphasize with this, or show some empathy towards this. Is it a phase that will pass with time? I'm not a professional. I can't answer that question for you. All I would say is just reach out, try and speak to people, but schedule time within your day. If you don't have family time scheduled in your day, then it isn't going to happen. So maybe when you're looking at your rituals or what you're going to do on a daily basis, you need to schedule, right, this is my hour where I'm going to communicate, text, WhatsApp, voice note, or maybe use schedule a Zoom half hour with your friends. So get it scheduled in your day, and then hopefully you can put energy towards that.
I've got a question here. You know, it seems that from the moment I start working until the day finishes, I don't really move off my desk, and it seems that I'm working much longer hours. What advice would you give to kind of help me?
Again, I completely get this. The first couple of weeks in isolation, I just sort of sat here all day, Zoom call after Zoom call after Zoom call. Look, when everyone was working in the office, you have these natural breaks in the day. You get up, you go to the toilet, you go and have a coffee, and you have those small interactions. So just make that time. Obviously, you can't walk to the shop, but maybe you just switch off, watch an episode on Netflix for half an hour. When you're having lunch, try and not sit at your desk and have lunch. Shut down your computer. Don't reply to messages for an hour. Cook yourself some food. So again, this probably comes back to how you schedule your day. Now, schedule your time, your space away from people. I think it's going to be beneficial. But if you're opening up the computer and letting the day run you, so you've got no schedule, yeah, it's not surprising that you haven't made time for yourself by the end of the day. So schedule in that time that you need for yourself.
Cool. What tools can you suggest for HR to motivate all employees who were sent for unpaid leave?
Milena, if you want to, it's such a tough question. I've probably got a couple of things that I would add, but.
Okay, please go ahead.
So for me, you want to keep communicating with these, I haven't been through it myself. So again, I can only talk about it in third person. I don't understand what these people are feeling. But if we try and put ourselves in the shoes of someone that's now sitting at home on unpaid leave, there's going to be so much fear and worry. So for me, maybe the important thing is just to keep communicating, keep them involved in the business, keep them updated in terms of what's going on. And maybe that you keep sharing these free resources. So I know there's a lot of people in the coaching community that are open to running sort of free coaching sessions. Maybe you still want to organize like a daily fitness thing for them. But yeah, I think keeping people informed just reduces that fear.
And then a lot of people, you know, mental health was a huge taboo before COVID-19. Working on the insurance side, even in terms of how insurance companies are structuring their benefits, this is kind of going to be at the forefront. But at this moment of time, like, people are experiencing anxiety. What would you recommend to kind of help people overcome that? What are the kind of tips and tricks, that's something that could help people kind of get calm and not get overwhelmed?
Yeah, and this is such a personal thing. So there's lots of people that meditate, but I know meditation is not for everyone. And like, meditation is something that I'd struggled with in the past, and everyone kept telling me to do it, but it just wasn't for me. So I think it's a very individual answer, and it's about people spending a bit of time trying to understand what's right for them. So for me, it was always running and training and exercise. And that gave me that space that other people use for meditation. Now, it might be reading a book, it might even be just really switching off and watching something not that intense in Netflix, etc., just to try and relax and calm your nerves. There's also various breathing exercises that people can try, which I can share with some resources after this for that as well. For me, it's such an individual answer. It's very difficult to answer when there's 70, 80 people on to give them.
There's a question here: how to motivate our team members who've had a salary cut?
Again, Milena, do you want to touch on that?
Look, I think the reality is that, you know, a lot of us are going to have a salary cut. I think as a company, there's a few things that you can do. You can come up with templates, how people can renegotiate their contracts with their landlords, with their rental companies, with banks, etc. So I think if you kind of give them the tools to support them in that way, I think you have to remind people like this isn't forever. So, you know, I'm a war child. So for good 10 years of my life, I watched my country at war, but you know, that ended too. So you just have to remind your employees that we hope that this will be, you know, short term, a few months at the best. And that, you know, as long as they keep on working, that they will be rewarded. You know, we've had a few promotions over the last few weeks because those team members are like still grafting and going in the extra mile. And so I think focus on the positives of the people that are doing really well, to try to keep people motivated.
I love that.
It's like having dogs, you know, positive reinforcement really helps when you're puppy training. So, you know, just really, because I think it's easy to talk about, you know, how bleak things are, like how horrible it is, like clients don't have money, there's, you know, cash flow is a problem. Like there are like genuinely so many issues that everybody is having, but I believe that every day you should focus on like 3 positive things that have happened to you. And it could be things like catching up with your family over Zoom. It could be, you know, joining a quiz night. It could be working out. It could be like baking a new dish. So the positive mental attitude really needs to stay there. And it's the same for your employees.
Yeah, I agree. And maybe you run a similar session like this with them. So get your employees to sit down and set themselves some 60-day goals with an action step in the next 7 days. I think work can become very consuming, and as a business owner, for the people that are asking, I think it's important to give your employees that space still. Maybe not ask them to work the 12-hour days, etc. Whilst we all need to continue making money as a business, you need your employees to be happy and relaxed and safe as well. So maybe this is where you offer them some free coaching, some sessions, etc., just to get themselves in a better mental space.
I think one of the questions here is, you know, when we do go back to the office, a lot of companies realize that they don't necessarily need to have their team members there. Some companies have done really well working remotely. So in your opinion, you know, is this going to be a reality, what our future is going to look like? Or do you think we will soon forget and go back to our old ways?
I'd like to think it's a new reality. As nice as it is sitting in an office surrounded by people, if I looked at my last role, there was people that were commuting an hour and a half or 2 hours each way to sit in an office and do work that they could have done from home. So allowing people to work from home, you're actually probably gifting them 2 to 3 hours of their time back that they don't need to commute. So I'd like to think it becomes a bit of an optional thing. Now, I know that's not the reality for every business, but I'd like to think it's going to become a new norm. Now, if I looked back at my time in the UK, I spent so long on trains going up and down the country to then sit in front of a client for an hour, when I could have just Zoomed called them with the same impact. So I hope it's the new norm.
Okay, we have a question here. How do you deal with stress of checking up on team members' health while at the same time to get 100% out of their work performance too? Because with the reality, if management doesn't see them performing, I will feel responsible if they lose their job. So Ben, you had quite a large team when we went into lockdown, and they all did really, really well under your leadership. So what tips would you share in order to keep your employees healthy but engaged? What worked for you?
Yeah, and I think for me, the thing that started working really well were those little check-ins. So those, rather than the scheduled hour where you sit down, you have an agenda, actually just jumping on a Zoom call or giving them a call and just checking in. And I took a coaching approach to it. So we're asking more questions and giving insights, so asking how are they, what they can do, what you can do to help them. So those are what and how questions versus why questions, and just really checking in. And for me, this means coming from a place of authenticity as well. As a leader in a business, if you're checking in purely to check on their performance, like employees know this. If you pick up the phone and check in on them because you genuinely care about them, I think this is where you can make a difference as the leader.
Very good. There's a great question here. What are your thoughts on people feeling that they need a break from continuously working from home, and how can someone reset themselves if they don't have the option of taking leave?
Wow, that's a great question.
Yeah.
So for me, if you don't have the option to take leave, it's the first time I've come across this, but if you don't have the option to take leave, then you really, really need to lean into your weekends. If you have to work 5 days a week, how can you make sure that those 2 days that you do get off at the weekend are used to really relax, switch off, etc.?
Another thing I found from personal experience is that when we started working from home, I kind of caught myself being at my dining room table, aka my new office, literally from 8 a.m. And sometimes, I'd get off at 6:30, have a quick bite to eat, and then I was back on my laptop at 7:30 and working till 10 o'clock at night. And after like 2 or 3 weeks of doing this, I got to a point where I was just really overwhelmed and genuinely felt like I was going to burn out, because it's not natural that, I wasn't really structuring my day. So kind of a few rules I have now is that, from Thursday, from 6 p.m. until Sunday morning, I will not work, because it's the only time I really get to be with my family. I focus on like cooking and baking and spending time with my dogs, because if I'm also working on the weekends, like I will genuinely burn out. And I'm trying to focus more, like if I'm working from 8 or 6:30, to really work and have a quick lunch break, and then try to shut off my laptop and then get involved in different communities, just to kind of have more structure. Otherwise, you're just going to feel like your whole life is just work.
Yeah.
Cool. There's a comment here, 2008, there were 5 key learnings. Number 1, cash is king. Number 2, exercise caution in everything. Number 3, maintain low overheads. Number 4, more is less. And number 5, find value in everything. Do you think 2020 is different?
So it's another great question. What's, I guess the learning, or like the overall learning, we'll probably only really start seeing over the next 2 or 3 months, and how the world adapts. For me, the biggest learning so far is actually around use of time. Now, everyone's talking about we have more time, but actually we have the same amount of time in a day that we've ever had before. Nothing has changed. We still have 24 hours. Actually, what we've done is stopped wasting time. So we stopped wasting time in the car. We've stopped wasting time having little conversations. So we still have 24 hours a day, but people perceive themselves to have more time. So for me, the biggest learning is going to be around how we manage our time to make sure we still have the space to really care about ourselves and our family and our friends and reconnect, etc.
Cool. Any other questions, please? Any other last thoughts from you, Ben?
I don't know. I touched on it earlier, but I think, and I always want to be cautious about throwing out loads of positivity. But for me, every time, like in a personal way, I've gone through something tough, or as a business, we went through something tough, what came next was always such a positive thing. So I think it's important that people just remember that. And we have something great probably around the corner, but it's just about how we help each other to get through this time.
Great. I mean, on behalf of everybody that's joined today, we really appreciate your interaction and your thoughts and your input. So it's been a fantastic session. As Ben mentioned earlier, we will be doing another session, a follow-up in 7 days' time. So we would love to see you again and discuss, some of the goals you set for yourself, and if you managed to stick by them. And if you haven't, we're here to support you to get back on track. Special thanks for Ben for taking the time out and giving some of his insights and amazing things and positive attitude. it's a challenging time and it's uncertain for all of us, but just want to assure everybody that we're here to help as much as we can.
Yeah, and just to reiterate that, if anyone wants to reach out, there's lots of people that said they're a bit uncertain. Feel free to reach out. I think my LinkedIn got tagged on either the email that went out to everyone. So feel free just to connect if you want to have a conversation. I'm more than happy to do like a 5-minute conversation on Zoom with anyone that needs it. So feel free to reach out and we'll schedule something in. Super excited for 7 days time to see if you guys have kept to what you've set for your first step to where you want to be in 60 days.
Also, I know there was a lot of questions in regards to employee engagement. So actually we're holding a session tomorrow at 11 o'clock by our SVP of People and Culture. So she's going to be talking about how we're keeping our team members motivated. So just drop me an email and I'll send you the invite. But for now, have a good week. We'll see you in 7 days. Thank you, Ben. Great session. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thank you. Have a great day.